Where are we? It's start of June. It's the first week of the 5-week Super Skills Rugby Extravaganza. We're at the Forte Village in Sardinia. There's myself and Austin week 1, and then weeks 2 and 3 we've got Martin Johnson, Dean Ryan, and 4 and 5 Jason Robinson, Jason Leonard in August. It's a wonderful family occasion. The weather's glorious, the beach is magnificent, the food is quite wonderful, and it's the start of a new Super Skills season, and we are very, very, very excited.
England just about to go off on a very, very tough tour. Two men that know South Africa from touring. Give me your recollections of your experience in South Africa.
Well, it's quite nice being here, giving recollections of South Africa in Forte Village on the beach, knowing you're not on a plane. I mean, it's great being with your mates, especially if you've been out in the sun. Nothing worse than sunburn whilst you're on holiday. But going to South Africa is a tough place.
The wife had to do.
I know. Well. Sunburn is hard, but not as hard as South Africa. South Africa is a tough place to go. It's really, they get on top of you. It's I'd say the most physically challenging tour you can go on. In 2000, I know you were in the midweek team, but the test team, we found it quite difficult. Some of the games are pretty hard. You've got big back rowers. I know the likes of Spies are out there this time. And I think that's where England have got to match South Africa. They can't take a backward step, but in a lot of ways, you can play on it and make them become more physical and put them off their game, because the South Africans are a very, very skillful nation. And more often than not, if you can force their forwards into the mentality of take us on, you'll detract from their backs. And I think England and Stuart Lancaster should have a little look at the psyche. I know Ian McGeechan did it well in '97. Sir Clive did it very well in 2000, and they came out away with tour victories.
I mean, it's a tough one as well for the midweek team, because the test matches were in beautiful 60,000-seater stadiums. The ground will be beautiful, the grass will be perfect. The midweek teams are in Potchefstroom, I think, in Kimberley. I mean, the ground is proper.
We went there in 2000.
That's what the ground's like. So it's a tough test for the midweek team. Stuart Lancaster, they'll find a lot about some of the kids they've taken out there. Are they big enough mentally as well as physically to be able to cope with the onslaught that will come at them? On the test match side, I mean, myself and Austin lucky enough to play and be sat here in one piece. Still got a sore neck from Joe van Niekerk, literally, and that was 2002. He was they're just huge men, and if you don't match it, you got no chance.
Well, the problem I had was I got told I was playing fly half an hour before kickoff, and then I think I had 23 tackles just on Venter. Off the back row, every single play he picked up off the base of the scrum and ran straight at me. Boy, I smashed him. I mean, he was lucky to finish the game. He was lucky to finish the game. That's 6'8", 20 stoner. He was lucky to get off that pitch alive.
Without blowing sunshine up your old backside. That was one of the best fly-half performances England have ever had. I mean, you had one game, didn't you? The Johnny, you and Wilco pulled out.
Johnny should have been sick more often. No, I played again against South Africa in the rough game at Twickenham.
You weren't 10 though.
No, Johnny started, but he went off after 25 minutes with a fractured follicle, finger follicle, and he had to go.
What we're going to talk about then, the test matches.
No, I'm going to ask you actually about what we're going to learn about Stuart Lancaster and his backroom team. How important, in fact, do you think this tour is for Mike Catt, for instance?
Yeah, I think we just heard Stuart Lancaster saying he's had no contact with Andy. Really, Stuart?
Yeah, I find that tough, but it's a hard one. You see, they need
four-man team. They'll go to a four-man team.
They will go to, well, maybe even 5, because I think they're still a bit stretched in terms of delivery. They definitely need a defence coach. Whether Farrell would do that, I don't know, because he seems to be pretty good on attack and a bit more inventive. Catty's a bit more analytical in the way that he approaches the game. He looks at it in the finer details. I'm not sure he has the feel for it that Will has, or maybe Andy Farrell for that matter. So he might be quite a good balance. And then I think they're going to need a kicking coach, because Catty was terrible off the tee. They need to bring Dave Allred back. He's the best guy in the world.
They're working with John Callard at the moment. I tell you who's working with Dave Allred, George Ford.
Well, there you go then.
So he's doing some good stuff. Look, I think it's a big challenge. I think that to frame the question, what an opportunity for Mike Catt. Clearly Lancaster wanted Farrell. It didn't work out in the short term, so he had to take someone out there who could take over. We were invited in to watch England training a week and a half ago, and I saw Mike Catt operating, trying to work on the awareness and the width of the pass and the precision of the pass that Mike Catt was so good at himself. I think it's a great chance, and if they can come away winning one test, I think they'll win one test. I think they'll go to a decider. If they can take it to the wire, then Mike Catt's basically doesn't need a geometry view. He's let the play do the talking.
All
for
about
him.
that first test, really, because they could. I think they'll take casualties. It's the end of a long season for a lot of these guys, and
it's
fair
at
play
sea
to
level
Stuart
first
Lancaster.
test.
Yeah, you've got to go for it in that first game.
Second test is altitude. You don't want to be going to Port Elizabeth needing a result. You've got to try and nick one of the first two.
Port Elizabeth
For the third test.
That's at altitude, is it?
No,
On
the
the
second.
beach?
The second test is altitude.
Oh, right.
They go back to Port.
You
We're
said-
covering it on TV. You haven't got it, so I know much more about it.
That's a good point. I've got a clue.
Last question for you. I want one player from each of you that you're really quite excited to see on this tour. Just
Very
one.
quickly on that Lancaster point, because that was the question I think we asked you earlier. I think we'll see a lot about him as a coach, because even though the World Cup's 2015, he's probably only got about 36 games. He needs to find out now, is he going to go with a passing 12, or is he going to keep Barrett in that slot and just go defensively? And so suddenly you begin to think, crikey, even though it's 3 years, there aren't that many tests. I know he's looking at
It's
Flood.
too long out to think about 2015.
He's
I think
looking
he's got
at
to look
Flood.
at now.
Yeah, so he's looking at Toby Flood potentially playing
No,
12
I
in one of
wouldn't
the
play
test
Floody
matches.
at 12.
Really considering it. So it's does he play Brown at fullback and play Foden on the wing? See what Foden's like. Brown's
that's
the
the one
best
area
attacking
where they-
fullback at the moment, as a not a counter attacker, but as an option
And
for
he's
your backs.
solid at the back as well, Brown.
So
Not
that's
that
what we'll
Foden
find out. Will Lancaster go with the tried and trusted that he's got from the Six Nations, or will he go, you know what, I'll give Christian Wade a game in the third test. I'll get Jonathan Joseph on in the second
I think
test.
he's lining Wade up to play in the first test. What he's been saying in the press.
I don't think I'll go away in the first test.
I
he
think
might
he's
get
been
a
lining
test.
him up.
Be a good one. But that's
Against
why
a
it's
Banner,
exciting.
opposite a Banner, he's not going to get done for pace. I
You
think
could
he's
do a
lining
Banner
up.
now, could you?
I could do a Banner on my bike. Yeah, maybe.
Oz, who are you excited by though in this current England squad that you've watched all season playing the Premiership that you think?
I'd quite like to see Christian Wade get a chance. I'd like to know how good he is. He's got a bit of swagger about him. He definitely got the pace to play and a bit of an X factor. So I'd say him in the backs. In the forwards, I think they need to find a loose head that is going to cement really the one shirt, and maybe Marler is that guy.
Comshire's gone well.
He has. He's been brilliant. Ireland, he was brilliant. Marler's going to get his opportunities, whether or not mentally he can take it. Because when Marler plays and he doesn't play as well as he can, he snaps and he just changes mentally and he does stupid things and gets himself into trouble. And that's a sign of weakness, and other players know that. If he can have a bad start to a game and then come through it strong, I think it could really be the making of him.
For me, I think I'm looking for the balance of the back row. It's tough without Croft and Wood. So will he throw Haskell straight off a plane from the Highlanders into the first test to play six because he knows him
And
well?
he's been playing
Or will he go, who had a big game in the first half in the Barbarians game, will he go with Dowson and put Haskell on the bench? Probably not answered your question there in terms of who I'm really excited about. See, Marler was one of them. Marler will get test match rugby in South Africa. Now people have questioned his scrummaging. In that final against Dan Cole, he went pretty well. Now he comes up against the big challenge, scrum spelt with a K out there. That's all they're after. You've got to meet him
Why is
physically.
that a bigger challenge if it's spelt with a K?
Because it's just harder phonetically to spell it. It's a kicking K, not a curly K. It's a scrum. And in the backs, who am I looking forward to seeing? Great question. I'd love Jonathan Joseph to get a trot out.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see Brown. I think Brown deserves a starting slot in one of the test matches. His performances were so good in the... You had him as your player of the season or in the team. And because the Six Nations, Foden nailed it down. Brown only got bench time, 10, 15 minutes here. I'd like to see him in the 15 jersey. He went there in 08, had a torrid time as a young kid. Go back now, 4 years
See, the
later.
issue he's got is that Foden, we don't know really whether he can play on the wing. When you had Josh Lucy and Jason Robinson there, you knew they could both play on the wing, so there was a fair chance you could do a bit of
Made up for
interchanging.
the other bloke who couldn't.
Yeah. I played at fullback. I've got the 15 shirt at home. Stole it off Jason Robinson.
Yeah.